All right. Well, this is Russ Smith from Burincon Martial Arts, and this is the Martial Force Podcast. I'm very excited today to have my teacher and very close friend, Sifu Mark Wiley, with me, and we're going to be covering his brand new masterpiece in a series of podcasts as we cover the details of section by section this incredible book called The Inner Gate. You can find this on Amazon.com in both paperback format and Kindle format. So, Sifu, thank you so much for being here. It's great to see you. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Russ. It's a
Thanks for
pleasure to
coming.
be here. I love
Awesome.
your nice, clean Japanese aesthetic to your Kun and dojo as compared to my Hong Kong style, everything in one spot.
I love it. I know it's great. I love to see other people's dojo and Gwoon and
Yeah.
just take the time before or after a class or an opportunity to just go around and look at every picture and certificate and the tools and weapons and stuff. You can really find some real amazing pieces of history in these schools. And I look forward to getting back to yours soon. So hopefully be setting up some
Can't
workshops
wait.
this year
Can't
for
wait.
us
You're
to come
always,
in. Go ahead.
yes, hopefully April and May. April and
Awesome.
May. Hopefully
Awesome.
I'll knock down or not knock down, but nail down some weekends,
Yeah.
potential weekends during this month that we'll
Awesome.
have for a few months forward
Excellent.
for
Excellent.
Eskrima and for Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good deal. I look forward to bringing some of your grand students in at some point
Mhm.
because that'll be a blast. Yeah. To your students and mine, get them together. It'll be great. But what I wanted to do was cover the book is so comprehensive. It is just unbelievably deep and wide at the same time. I wanted to cover this in a series of discussions because I don't think we'll be able to cover everything all in one go. I want to cover section one, which is really kind of chapters one, two, and three. And it starts with the cultural perspective of the style. And it talks
Yeah.
about, you talk about how Five Ancestors is kind of a part of and created in and affected by the Minnan culture of a certain area in China. And it seems very important as we discussed in other conversations, Sifu, because the cultural underpinnings, the ethos, the ideas, and the time and the context and the situations of the people that founded these styles are really critical to understanding the art 150, 200 years later. So can you tell us about kind of that part of the world and what was going on that shaped the background of this style's creation?
Yeah. So the style was created in the late 1800s and by Chua Gyok-beng, Kayuming in Mandarin. And he was from Quanzhou, China. Quanzhou was in Fujian province or Fujian province, and of which there's many areas within Fujian. But the people are called the Minnan or Southern Min people. And there's basic dialect there, the Minanhua. There's like Hokkien and Tiaochuo and Fukienese. It's this kind of
Mhm.
just different groups that were around in there that had different languages, kind of grew together and grew out. Um, so during that time, well, if we go back hundreds of years before then, there was all kinds of things happening. There were different martial arts, but really, I mean, we don't know what happened for real. I mean, it's just the stories, right? So we just say to the best of our knowledge
Right.
that the Taizu Chuan or Taicho Kun that we call from the north, which was called Northern Shaolin Changchuan or the
Mhm.
Northern Long Fist, was brought down to the south.
Mhm.
Um, and while General Chi Ji-guan was fighting these pirates, the Japanese Wuko pirates, they were like slaughtering their men.
Mhm.
So he did a couple of things. One, he got a hold of a Japanese sword and said, "How long does it make our swords 4 inches longer?" And it's like, so if we're both swinging, as long as you maintain your range,
Right.
you've got a little advantage there, right?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
if you just aim for their arms.
Sure. Yeah.
And then he started looking at the tactics of how the soldiers trained. Like they had to get fit, right? They had to be physically fit and they had to be mentally tough,
Right.
and they had to have drills and they had to be able to fight in close quarters and in long quarters with weapons and without weapons. And so that northern Taicho or Taizuchuan style over 100 or so years started changing to the short strike or short fist styles
Mhm.
that we see in Fujian province, right?
Mhm.
So, but then General Qi Ji Guan's system really more influenced, like in his book, um, the styles in Canton. It's like Choi Li Fut and Hunga, with the large arms. And when you look at the drawings in his book, they're these kind of postures,
Mhm.
which are still related to the long fist,
Right.
right? But
Yep.
somehow in Fujian, it became a short strike style over
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
especially when it went from military to like civilian defense,
Right.
people within their towns and little militias within the towns. And
Yeah.
Chogyok Bang came up in this time. Yu Daiyo also had an influence
Mhm.
after, and then there were several books and writers of Kung Fu that came in after, which are all outlined in the book,
Right.
and pictures from those, and tons of translations from those books in
Yeah.
to show that all this came before Chogyok Bang came up and started studying martial arts. And you could say, well, so what? Like, what do those books have to do, or General Chi Ji Guan have to do with this guy who was in a privileged family? They owned a sauce garden. They made soy sauce and so forth, and they were a rich family. So they would hire kung fu teachers to come in to train their son.
Mm.
It's one of those things. You have servants and you have kung fu teachers. So
Right.
Chua Gyok Beng from a young age had white crane teachers coming in, Tai Cho teacher, different styles.
Mhm.
But then around the age of 20, he took and passed the military exam, the Chinese
Mm.
military exam, which is very hard to pass, which
Mhm.
means from there you would go on to be a general or a scholar
Mhm.
and so forth. So there was this academic study where he would have been introduced to the works and the classic writings of Qi Ji Guang and Yu Dayao
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So in that milieu of that culture and the culture of the
Mhm.
Green Lion dance, right?
Right.
Which is, for the Ming rebels, overthrow the Qing, restore the Ming.
Right.
The salute for our style is the symbol for Qing or bright. The Green Lions are like that to fight the Qings.
Right.
So
Right.
they're really kind of the rebel fighters. So it's
Mhm.
it's a whole bunch of cultural things that are embedded in and around of that Minnan culture, in and around Quanzhou and Xiamen,
Yeah.
in Fujian province,
Yeah.
that Chua Gyok Beng grew up in and his art
Yeah.
consumed.
Right. So can you tell us more about, can you explain the Fan Qing Fu Ming, the suppress the Qing, return the Ming? What was going on there politically, and how was that creating a situation for Kung Fu teachers, for instance?
Yeah. So one of the things is that the original Chinese were Han, what they call Han Chinese, and the Qings came in, the Manchus,
Bless you.
flip,
Mhm.
came in and took over with military might, took over
Mhm.
China. And they were trying to basically normalize one big China, one group, one nationality, but it had to be theirs, of course.
Right, right.
It had to be Qing values and Qing rule and
Yeah,
the language of the Qing, and et cetera. And
yeah,
during that time, one of the this is where we get the Boxer Rebellion, these kung fu guys who thought they could take bullets and withstand cuts and blows. And Sun Yat-sen was one of the rebels, and he was, he left and was hiding out in Japan, but he had several groups in China who were like underground rebels, along with him and his other scholars in Japan, trying to create change within China for the Chinese people. And it's interesting that Chua Gyok Beng is, in addition to being a kung fu master and a military exponent, was also learned orthopedics and herbal medicine,
Mhm.
right? So bone setting and Chinese medicine.
Right.
And he had created a medicinal wine, and it was named after one of his nicknames, Sun Yun. And one of his students was making this and selling this on the ports because it was used for people getting hurt fishing, farming, but also
Sure.
the rebel fighters. And Sun Yat sen took some when he was in China and liked it so much he wrote a calligraphy about the wine. And that
Yeah.
story and that calligraphy picture is also in the book.
It's
Yeah.
very,
So
very cool.
Chua Bang would, yeah, he would go out and find young men to recruit and train to help fight in local militia, to
Yeah.
fight the Qing, to fight to keep the town safe, to keep these people away and help restore the Ming. He wasn't a big leader, but he was a local leader for it. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a wide kind of
Yeah.
event, over
Yeah.
time, but he and his guys contributed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there more you can tell people about Sun Yat-sen who may not be familiar with him generally, or kind of you mentioned his place in China and some reference to Japan.
Yeah.
Ultimately, he moved
He
to
came
Taiwan,
back.
came back.
Yep. He came back in, and in 1911, during the revolution,
Mhm.
the Qing were defeated,
Right.
and Sun Yat-sen was put up as the first president of a new China, or what they call the Republic of China. And after that time, interestingly, in 1911, after that time, a lot of kung fu books came out, and the books about the wandering knight errants and so forth.
Mhm.
The
Right.
you
Wu
know,
Sha.
and so getting your hands on Republican era kung fu books is really important for
Mhm.
collectors and learners because it's before wushu came in,
Mhm.
100 years later or
Right. Right.
whatever it was, 70 years later,
Yeah.
with Chairman Mao Zedong, right?
Yeah.
And wanting to get rid of kung fu, and
Yeah.
everything became wushu and
Yeah.
sportified and dancified, and the
Yeah.
masters were killed. So Chua Kyok Bang's student, Yu Chuk Sam, wrote a book called Chinese Gentle Art Compendium or Complete,
Mhm.
which we published and translated with your help with Sifu Alex
Mhm.
Ko, and called the Gocho Bible, and that was came out in 1914. So
Mhm.
it's one of those rare Republican era books, but it had been unavailable outside of Xerox copies in China for 80
Right.
years. I mean,
Right. Right.
100 years almost. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Can
And
you
so his art came up during that time, and Sun Yat-sen took over, and helped create this Republic of China.
Yeah.
To, so,
So Chua Gyok Beng and his early students were involved in this rebellion, which was put down. But Teng Kyung Beng went left China. How did that kind of rebellious, like uh, patriot core Chinese patriotism find its way from China to the Philippines through Teng Kyung Beng? Can you tell us more about that?
okay, so Chua Gyok Bang had what's called the Trenzhou Five Tigers. They were his first five disciples. And then later in his life, he had what's called the later five disciples, which
Hmm.
included the next to make 10.
Hmm.
Although there's plenty of teachers who were very to the preservation and promoting and teaching of the art, and some of the tigers didn't really teach. But um, Tan Kyung Bang, whose picture is so there's Chua Gyok
Yeah.
Bang and then
Second from the
Tan
left.
Kyung
Yeah.
Bang. He
Yeah.
was the fifth tiger. Yeah. He was the fifth student. And what Chua Gyok Bang did was say, like, hey guys, I'm going to send one of you to Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, the Philippines, and we're going to spread this art, right? And
Mhm.
you're going to build groups there within Chinese communities. And it turns out that in the Philippines is the very first Chinatown, established Chinatown in the world. And
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
over 400, maybe 500 years old at this point, 400 something years old. And Tan Kyung Beng was sent there um, to the Chinese community there. And the Chinese community needed to set up and learn Kung Fu, and they needed herbal doctors and orthopedics. So he went there to help them because the Philippines were also struggling in wars
Mhm.
against the Japanese. The
Mhm.
Sino-Japanese War became World War II,
Mhm.
and et cetera down the line. But there was always these kind of things where the Chinese were the outsiders in their little enclave. And at that time, I think this, where it's at night, he came over in 1895. So 1898 is the end of the Spanish-American War in the Philippines,
Wow.
where
Yeah.
America kicked Spain out, who had been 333 years of ruling. So
Right.
you had the Spanish and the Tagalogs, the Filipinos there, and the Chinese were this little enclave that they were trying to control or take over and bully. So Tan Kyung Bang set up classes, and he had a number of disciples there, teaching Kung Fu and also Chinese medicine and bone setting. And then he stayed for a bunch of years. He didn't establish a formal club yet, but he was teaching the art there in
Yeah.
1898.
Was
Yeah,
Binondo the original location of
that's
that
the
earliest
Chinatown.
Chinatown,
hmm
the oldest
Yeah,
Chinatown in existence?
yeah. And what's horrible is that Marcos, when he was president, Ferdinand Marcos, he said, "Look, you're part of the Philippines, and we're a lot of mostly American anyway. So all your signs have to be in either Tagalog or English, and take down the Chinese letters."
Oh wow.
So when you
Yeah,
walk
yeah,
through Binondo, or back after in the Marco days, and mostly and until recently, like, you didn't
yeah.
see a lot of Chinese looking stuff. I mean,
Mm,
inside the stores was, right, all the
right,
stuff they sell and food they
right.
cook and books and etc. Um, but it just looked like any other area of Manila
Yeah,
uh, at
yeah,
that time. But since then they've been rehanging Chinese signs and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
rebringing their culture back in.
yeah,
But
yeah.
um, yeah, so he left and then retired back in his 60s, I think, to China, back to Quanzhou, Tankyongbang,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. And
to take care of himself.
eventually he did create or formalize the Benkiam Athletic Association as the earliest kung fu school in the Philippines as well. Yeah.
So in 1932, he sent his son Tan Ka-hong from China to the Philippines. He was getting more, Tan Kyung-bang was getting more and more invitations to come back. Look, we need you here. We've
Mm,
got disciples who want to keep training. We're in the need of medical care for our Chinese, brothers here and the people in the community. He said, I'm too old. I just want to spend my twilight years here. I'm going to send my son Tan Ka-hong, who's the third one here,
yeah.
who is his son.
Yeah.
And so he sent Tan Ka-hung there, and Tan Ka-hung was met by Chan Hong-chung and others who were the lead top disciples of Tan Kyung-bang in Manila, in
Yeah.
Binondo, in Chinatown, in the
Yeah.
Philippines. And
Yeah.
Tan Ka-hung had to prove himself because he was younger than them, you
Right.
know.
Yes.
But
Yes.
luckily,
Yes.
he studied flying crane with his mother,
Mm.
and then he learned after he did that, like around age 11, he started Go Cho under his father, you know.
Yeah.
And he had really good kicks in strong, and he would have a guy hold the shield to kick him across the room. And he
Uh,
knew forms that most of the disciples were halfway through Song Sao Kun, one of the forms, and then he knew the rest of it, plus the
right.
next forms,
Right. Right. Right.
and they're like,
Yeah.
okay, we accept you. Come on in.
Right.
And
Yeah. It
then
makes
they decided then to open an actual club and give it a
gotcha.
name, rather
Gotcha.
than just using a cigarette factory or the back of somebody's store. But
Gotcha.
technically, in 1898, when Tang Kyung-beng was teaching, I mean, he formed a club. They just
Yeah.
didn't name it.
Ah, I see.
He had a
Gotcha.
place where they met, and he was
Yeah.
teaching there actively. They just
Yeah.
didn't have a
Yeah.
name for it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 1932, we got Ben Kiam, which means humble bang, after Tragyok Bang,
Cool.
the humble bang, because one of Tragyok Bang's things that he was known for was being very humble and gracious and helping anybody who asked with money or food or
Mm.
medicine,
Yeah.
and etc. So they call the school Humble Bang. Yeah.
No, that's great. It seems like there's a there's an important element of the formation and development of the art that is not to be simply focused on the fighting aspect. There's the healing aspects, there's the morality, there's the scholarship to understand the classics and to be well learned. So it seems like the art from its onset was comprehensive, not only martially, but literarily, by way of virtue and trying to help the common person, try to use those kind of chivalrous values, the Chinese version of chivalry, to make sure that the martial arts were well accepted and well utilized by the people. Would you agree?
Totally. Yeah, you got it exactly right. Tragyok Bang thought, like, if in the Gocho Bible, uh, where the English version is available on
Mhm.
Amazon, if you read it's not written in the book, but the introductions to the book, the forwards that were written by other
Very
people of
important.
the time, talk
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
And it's like, we need Kung Fu to build up our youth.
Yes.
We have
Yes.
to build a strong, like Bruce Lee in Fist of Fury, which was named Chinese Connection in the US. It's like we are not the sick dogs of Asia. We're not little
Right.
mice scared running
Right.
around, right? We
Right.
need to build strong guys who are also have a fighting spirit, but they have morals, high morals,
Yeah.
what we call, modek, right? Or
Yeah. Yep.
modek,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So, and Wuda
Yeah.
in Mandarin.
Right.
And the thing is, like, you have to have those morals, uh, or I'm not teaching you kung fu. And we're a family, so treat the students just like the family. So
Mhm.
literally, when Tan Ka Hong was running Benkian while he was alive, and he died in, I think, 1990, 89 or 90, I forget exactly. It's in
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah.
Um, he had he had like the signboards on his wall that talked about that, and those are in the book. Talked about how the family is put together and how the
Right.
teachers must treat the seniors like their eldest sons, and the eldest sons must treat the juniors as their
Right.
younger brothers. Not
Right.
just my sihing, my sibak, whatever, but really do that.
Yeah.
And also we need to be educated. Tan Ka Hong was also educated in he wasn't a military man, but he went to school and he
Mhm.
learned to read and
Yeah.
read classics, and he learned medicine from his father and bone setting and Chinese herbal
Yeah.
medicine, and he
Yeah.
also learned qigong, and he was Buddhist, right?
Yeah.
So there's a whole underpinning of morality that comes with the Buddhism.
Yeah. I think it's something we take for granted in the time and place that we live in, that 200 years ago, especially in China, really anywhere across the world, the level of literacy for the average person was quite low. So to
Yeah,
learn classical Chinese, and we're talking about traditional Chinese, right? China went through a reformation where they simplified the language because it was incredibly complex. So just being a person of letters 200 years ago was a big deal. But then to also study the classics, the Tao Te Ching, the Art of War, all the classics that are incredibly important, as well as preparing to try to get a job with the government, which was an incredibly valuable thing if you could get it. It could mean setting your
influence,
entire family line up for success for
right?
generations. Incredibly important and incredibly difficult because those tests were very difficult physically. Archery, lifting heavy objects, fighting, as well as having to learn all the things and take the written exams. Really, really impressive. And Chogyok Beng and some of the other disciples passed those exams. Ultimately, they were involved in the revolution, so they didn't end up taking those government roles. But yeah, it's really impressive what they were able to
Yeah.
accomplish
I
back in the day.
think definitely the first five tigers, maybe the first six were all passed the military exam.
Yeah.
The specific information on that of who passed and at what level is in the book,
Hmm.
is in the book here in the section on
Yeah.
the history, chapter 2. Because it's important that those 10 tigers plus other really important practitioners and promoters of the art who, for whatever reason, weren't considered a tiger. I don't know how he made the designation. That's not written
Right.
down.
Right.
But there's a bunch of other practitioners who were highly regarded and who did take the art and move it to other countries and help promote.
Yeah.
And most of them, I mean, there's a Buddhist monk,
Hmm.
and who was in the temple in Quanzhou,
Hmm.
and uh, you know, many of the tigers had passed that military exam. Later
Yeah.
ones didn't, but the
Yeah.
times had changed.
Right. Right.
But those also learn qigong and medicine,
Right.
herbal medicine, right?
Right.
So even up to the last tiger, number 10, was who?
Simyang Tech.
Samyang Tech,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Who took the art to Singapore. And
Right.
Samyang Tech opened up a medicine shop,
Yeah.
where he treated patients,
Yeah.
and he
Yeah.
called it He Yang Tang, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
great
Yeah.
yang. And Tang, Tang is like an herbal prescription. It's
Mm.
Tang and Song. It depends. One's a capsule, one's a pill. Then you also have a powder and you have a tea. And right, so but he called it, so it could be Tang or Tong with an O, which means hall, right? The
Mm.
Great Yang
Right, right.
Hall.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's funny that the name He Yang, it's a homophone, right?
Right.
So it
Yes.
also sounds like
Right.
He Yang, she, who was Tragyok Bang's Taicho teacher,
Right.
who many think was his Go Cho teacher. The
Right.
history doesn't bear that out. But and the name He Yang and He Yang are a coincidence in our pronunciation in English because we don't
Right.
do the tones, but
Right.
the
But if you
characters are
read it,
different.
it's very
The
clear.
characters are
Yeah.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 One's a
Yeah.
place and one's a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
But
thank
even
you.
up to the 10th Tiger, and including students today.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Tan Kahung's son, Benito Tan, is a Buddhist,
Mm.
also still carrying that forward, though not an herbalist or a doctor in that
Sure.
respect. But I studied Chinese medicine
Yeah.
and Qigong and other things, and so do other practitioners
Yeah.
in all the different lines.
Yeah.
It's kind
Yeah.
of like the ethic is built in, and
Right.
the need to be what we might call a Renaissance man or
Yeah.
master of how many excellences,
Yeah.
different excellences,
Yeah.
uh,
To be
or
well-rounded,
some well-rounded
we don't want
person.
to build thugs or gangs, right? This isn't about just the
Right,
fighting.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So
But there were some students along the way who were thuggish and were just brought in for fighting, and taught for fighting because you
sure.
need them, especially during Tan Ka-hung's time because of the Sino-Japanese War and the takeover of the Philippines by the Japanese and the problem with Taiwan. They were with Taiwan and China blocked everyone out. Then China opened up and there was
Yeah.
always people disrupting business
Yeah.
and different
Yeah. Yeah.
things to help promote Taiwan, the People's Republic of China, and
Yeah.
they would have Ben Kiam come as their protection,
Yeah.
and they would do
Yeah.
demos on stage and they would chase
Yeah.
away and fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they fought
Yeah.
in the streets as well. And
Yeah.
those stories are also, and they fought against the Japanese in World War
Yep.
II as
Yep.
rebels. And
Yeah.
all those stories are in the book,
Yeah.
chapter 2.
In modern terms, people talk about sheepdogs and the role of kind of the protector style of people. It can be military LEO, but it can also be civilian martial artists or bodyguards or security forces of various kinds. And um, it seems important that um, no matter the group that's involved in learning the skills of violence, that there be some codes of conduct to try to help ensure that it doesn't go sideways and you don't get a rebel militia popping up or a gang popping up that's doing things that weren't really well designed to the core of the tenets of the art, right? Or the intention of the style. So
Right.
Sifu, you talked about you called it by its kind of more common name, the Gocho Bible, but the written version of the book is Chinese Gentle Art Complete or Chinese Jiu-Jitsu Complete, you could call it if you want to mix
Yeah.
terminology. But that's just one of a number of books. Now, we now understand that Chua Gyat-beng had writings, some of which survive and didn't. Other teachers, other disciples in various levels of lineage have written other ones. Can you tell us some about the writings that you were able to get access to help source what you know, what your teacher gave you, what you additionally researched for the book? Can you tell us kind of about the background bibliography of the style? The style is actually quite well documented and researched for many years. Can you tell us some more about that?
Yeah. So one thing that was interesting for me as a Westerner is to find out how well documented the style is in Chinese,
Mhm.
you know. And it's even more interesting because the style is the most popular martial arts style in Fujian province, but never really made its way in North China or
Mhm.
down through Canton, right?
Mhm.
It's
Right.
like a stronghold in Fujian. It's been named a national cultural heritage, and they've created Gocho or Wuzu aerobics
Mhm.
for women's aerobics teams, and they have competitions with them using the movements of Go Cho, but in an aerobic fashion. And they've developed elementary school and middle school or high school and in college requirements for practice
Mhm.
and testing as part of physical education. Like this art is so deeply in the culture of Fujian
Right.
that it's still to this day is becoming more and more embedded. Like
Right.
it's now in the colleges, but it wasn't like 10 years ago. Like
Right.
it keeps building and building.
Yeah.
And through that, what I found through my Sifu Alex Ko, he had a number of books in Chinese, and he would highlight passages for me and Xerox the books. You know, I I couldn't read everything he had highlighted. I thought it was very nice, and one day I'll figure out what he's pointing out for me. But he
Hmm.
did translate quite a bit for me.
Hmm.
And when one visit in 2008, when I went to the Philippines to see him, he actually read me the Bible straight through. I didn't have a video camera, but we got to discuss the entire thing. And a
Yeah.
lot of it is just two-person drills and
Hmm.
forms, but
Right.
he still read through it so I could get a sense of how the names of the
That's
techniques
cool.
go
Yeah.
together, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but in addition to that, Chua Gyuk Beng was said to have written 13 books. I think
Wow.
they were more like essays or,
Hmm.
smaller things, not full, what we would consider a
Hmm.
book.
Gotcha.
But it could be, right? I mean, most of that has been lost. But about 20
Wow.
years ago, through the Chua Family Association, they found going through their archives or their collection of family stuff,
Hmm.
however we want to say it,
Yeah.
one of those essays
Yeah.
on the art of Go Cho,
Hmm.
and it was maybe 18 pages or something.
Hmm.
Um, and um, Zhou Ming Wan had
Hmm.
included it in one of his Chinese books,
Hmm.
and then from him, I got him to send me the original that they published in a compendium book as one chapter of many on Southern martial arts
Hmm.
in the late 1990s or early 2000s.
Yeah.
And that entire essay is translated and in Intergate in different sections.
Yes. Yes.
So the
The
section on
relevant
the
sections.
Modek,
Yeah.
right, is in the section on the inner and outer, and the
Hmm.
chi is in another section, and the section on the breathing is in another, and the fighting strategies is in another. So
Yeah.
it's all in there, and it's identified as such, and it has the original Chinese, and
Yes.
then translation, and then my discussion on it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But there's been dozens and dozens of articles on Five Ancestor Fists in Chinese, and not just in the magazines, but now
Mhm.
online because of the
Yeah.
internet, right, and the
Yeah.
archives.
Yeah.
And then there's probably 30 books in Chinese, books and compendium books that might be like all on the Fujin styles or just on the
Mhm.
styles of Chuanzhou or the
Right.
Minnan styles, and then there's a chapter on Gocho
Yeah.
and et cetera. So I
Yeah.
was able to collect all of that material
Yeah.
because of the internet and
Yeah.
finding people who had copies.
Yeah.
And then, we would use the original. Well, first I paid translators when we did the Bible
Yeah.
for, especially those prefaces were hard to
Yeah.
understand the old language,
Yeah.
and that was very expensive. And then we used the
Yeah.
original Google Translate, which was horrible. I mean, you get the gist, but then from that, we'd
Yeah.
give it to the translator.
Yeah.
And then the translator would go through, but they're modern Mandarin
Yep.
speakers and they don't know
Yep.
the Fukian or the Hokkien and the martial
Yep.
terms, so we have to
Yep.
adjust. But
Yeah.
now with AI and the way the translations is, it's very clean.
It's
Um,
shocking. What
yeah.
definitely been along this journey with you for many years, Sifu, and been involved in trying to learn to read Chinese myself and over time. And yeah, what AI can do now to even contextualize 150-year-old Chuenzhou based writings is so much better than it was before because there are terms in these books that they're very localized. You cannot get a modern
Right.
speaker to understand them without some context of martial arts or other things, related things. So yeah, it just things have really come a long way for our understanding. It's really incredible. I mean, you were given such gifts and like Rosetta Stones to help unlock it, and then continuing to find more information to review. It's been an incredible journey along the way.
Yeah, and another author, Zhou Kunmin, who
Hmm.
is a Taizu Chuan practitioner, Tamboli Media published a translation of his book, Chuanzhou Taizu Chuan.
Yeah.
But he also had published quite a bit, and he
Mhm.
took essays from each of the different lines of Chua Gyok Bang, right?
Yeah.
The Singapore line, the Philippine line, the Malaysia line, the Indonesia line, the China
Yeah.
line, and combine those chapters into collected works, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which Sifu Alex Ko had given me copies of
Yeah.
those books, but now we can read them,
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing.
rather than
Yeah.
just having him translate sections for me.
Right.
We get more precise
Yeah.
translations. So overall, there was, I think, 28 pages of references in the back of this book. 90% in Chinese, the rest were in English. And I didn't
Yeah.
include the magazine articles in English
Right.
because it's just there was
Yeah.
maybe 30 of them, and that would be another 3 pages. And they didn't really add much to the understanding of the art. They were more
Yeah.
technique-based
Right.
articles,
Yeah. Yeah.
but so much content to
Yeah.
really go through and get a wider picture
Right.
of all of this, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
there's interesting, even in a little book I got on Minnan culture. I think it's like
Hmm.
understanding Minnan culture. There's a chapter on Five Ancestor Fist
Right.
and a
Right.
chapter on line dance, and
Yeah.
then music and poetry and
Yeah.
dancing, all kinds of stuff. But
Yeah.
but that little 3 pages gave more insight into the cultural setting for
Yeah.
that art. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Where the
Yeah.
martial art books is just about the martial arts.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah,
speaking about the martial side of it, Sifu, can you tell us about Khao Kut or Kyun Kit in Cantonese?
right.
What it is, what its value is, how can you kind of be inculcated into the meanings and understandings of these things?
Yeah, so in Cantonese, they call it kyun kit, which is like fist poems or fist ways. And in Gocho or Hokkien, they're known as Calcut or oral keys, right?
Hmm.
It's like the oral key that can unlock the system. And they're very important to understand, but a lot of people don't understand them. So a lot of Southern fist practitioners grab all the same oral keys
Hmm.
about the bridges, and the grabbing from Wing Chun, who has a list of them and so forth. But evidently, there were hundreds of them in
Yeah.
Gojo in
Yeah.
the early writings and in the Chinese writings that wasn't available to us here in the West.
Hmm.
My Sifu told me a lot as we'd go. He'd tell me, like,
Right.
here's a key here. He would call them pointers. Here's a pointer. Here's a pointer. Remember this pointer. Remember that pointer. Okay.
Yeah.
But then going through all the manuscripts and all the documents, and so all those oral keys are in the book here,
Mhm.
and the martial morality is part of those. But it might say something like, simply, fake left, go right, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that's a simple
Mhm.
thing. But there was all kinds of things where they called motion like time and tide, right?
Mhm.
So it's like as the tide, you think of an ocean tide coming and going. How's the tide of this fight? Are you on your back? Is his tide coming in or is your
Mhm.
tide going out? And
Mhm.
what is your timing based on the tide
Right.
to attack,
Yeah.
or to
Yeah.
change the momentum,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then they have breakdowns from controlling the center and controlling the flank, and
Mhm.
how the tide can now move sideways to control the flank. And
Yeah.
all these are set in these oral keys,
Yeah.
and they're listed mostly in the fighting chapters,
Right.
although there's a whole bunch of oral keys in the culture
Right.
and the history,
Right.
the philosophy. There's chapters on
Right.
breathing and the mind
Right.
and
Right.
power, force, and energy, and
Yeah.
all the oral keys relevant are
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
listed in those
Yeah.
chapters.
But
Yeah.
if you had a book and you simply read those keys without the teachings that explain the keys, it's like a shorthand. If you don't know, if I take my notes in shorthand in my notebook and I give it to somebody, they can't read my shorthand unless I'm following a defined standard for shorthand. And in these Kyun Kit or
Right.
Calcut,
Right.
these things are not things that if you just gave them to a non-disciple that they could really decipher generally. It would be quite difficult. And making that even harder is the time and language, of course, because if you say like open the bagua, well, we don't call the chest the bagua today, but
Right.
in 1820 in Quanzhou, they called it the bagua. So like you would have to know that to decipher the poems. And it seems like that's a way that you could hide knowledge in plain sight by writing the books. There's a million great kung fu movies about somebody steals your
The
school's
manual.
your
Right.
chuanpu, and they get your secrets from that. But the reality is you can't get the secrets that way. You can't read somebody else's encoded message and understand it, really.
Right. So I have two things to comment there. One is if it's of the same time period and they know what the Bagua means, if they're of that time, those
Mhm.
words would make sense if they were a practitioner of an art at a level that they would know that this is a Bagua, right?
Maybe
But
close enough.
jump 150 to 200 years ahead, you know,
Yeah.
It's like they also call the torso the abdominal the head,
The head.
you
Yeah.
know, in five parts power, or you
Right.
know, and like you're not, or in the forms hitting the head.
Yeah.
We're not. I mean,
It's not
it's
like
not our
that.
head, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Um, but the other thing is, if it's like cooking, right? If you've never been a chef and there was no Food Network, and you wanted to make cheesecake and it says fold in 12 eggs, how do you fold in an egg? How do you fold an egg? What does that mean?
That's right.
Whisk the egg, beat
Yeah.
the egg, but what does
Right.
it mean? Like you've seen your mom whisk to make a cake, and
Yeah.
you've seen her whip an egg to make a scramble, but
Yeah.
you've never seen somebody fold an egg. What does that
Right.
mean? Like it's like words that mean something to the people who are studied and knowledgeable in that milieu, you
Yes.
know. So I could say to you, fold in 12 eggs and throw in a pinch of salt. Well, how
Right.
much is a pinch? It's usually not a
Right.
pinch. It's like a scoop of fingers full, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and then they say like, and pepper to taste. What does
Yeah.
that mean?
Yeah.
Taste the pepper? Like
Yeah.
these are things that are common in cooking,
Yeah.
but if you never cook, you really wouldn't know how to figure it out. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
need first of all, you need a teacher who knows what he's teaching.
Yeah.
And then you need a teacher who can explain what they are because they're in the book. And if you don't, you're going to look like you don't know what the art is, right? So all the
Exactly.
Ocho
Exactly.
teachers know.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the teacher needs to be able to explain it on a level that's not superficial,
Mm,
right?
good point.
So in some of the Calcut later in the book, in the application
Mhm.
sections, I have Chua Gyok Bang's, then his one line,
Mm,
his two-sentence commentary on each line,
mhm.
right? And then I have the Beng Hung interpretation of that,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
because unless we interpret what that means, like I couldn't have interpreted it without my Sifu, and he
Right.
couldn't have interpreted it, Alex Ko there, without Tan Ka Hung, and
Right.
he got the understanding through Tan Kyung Bang, through Chua Gyok Bang. So we have this
Right.
whole line straight in a row. And even Tan Kyung Bang was friends with lots of the other Tigers. They all
Mhm.
knew each other. Then they trained
Mhm.
together at different times, even though
Mhm.
they were from different time periods. You know, Tan Kyung Bang would visit Chua Gyok Bang, and
Yeah.
you know, one Sim Young Tech would be there, young kid learning,
Yeah.
you know, because they were quite a few
Yeah.
decades apart, you
Yeah. Yeah.
know, and so you know they were always in contact with one another. So
Right.
and so this information came through the lineages, and it's just a matter of if those schools, when they dispersed out to all the Southeast Asian countries,
Right.
were willing to share that information or not. I know for our case with Ben Kiam, our Mogun, um, Tan Ka-hung was active teacher in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and then a group of his guys, you know, went and studied another art after he said no, and he
You
folded
got
his
very
hands.
guarded at that point.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
at that point, he just sat in the chair, read the paper, listened, nodded, and that's when Sifu Alex Ko came in '63. You know, smoking, reading the paper, nodding. Oh, it's good, it's good. And Alex Sifu was just learning from his Sihings, you
Mhm.
know, and then jump ahead 17 years to 1980. He says, Master Tan, I want to write a book, a Kung Fu book on Go Cho. It's like, okay, come Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever the days were where they didn't have class. And he started correcting him. He said, but Master Tan, I've been here, you know, almost 20 years. I've been doing it this way for 20 years. Why didn't you ever correct me? He said, you're not my student. What do you mean I'm not your student? He said, you're a member of the athletic association. We have badminton, we have mahjong, we have kung fu, we have blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I never took you on as a disciple. So that's where you're learning from your Sihings. And that's like, you feel like, oh my God. So a lot of guys go through that in their kung fu clubs where they're in there and the teacher's there, but they're not learning from the teacher, and the teacher's not actively correcting. You know, this is why Kung Fu is in such bad shape, right? I mean, you know,
Uh, to
but
throw
then,
a shameless plug in here, I mean, my book Teaching 101 is all about the challenges and difficulties and how we might want to do things differently in the future so we don't run into some of the problems that stuff creates.
yeah. And that's a really good book because it gives you the whole,
Thanks.
your book, 101,
Thanks.
because it gives you the whole outline on like what are the goals of you as a teacher, what are the goals of the students, and how do you create a curriculum that satisfies most of your goals and hopefully satisfies the students' goals, but keeps the integrity of the system intact either
Right.
way.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's the whole
It's a
thing, you
tough
know?
balancing act, right? And of course,
Yeah,
Tan Ka Hung was trying to figure out his method of that. And he might have said, well, my son is my lineage bearer, and
right.
that's all I've got. And then Alex Coe comes along and shows himself as a promising upstart. And then it's like, okay, I guess I've got another person I can invest in. I can give the real
Yeah,
keys to. And then a Wakun and a handful of
right.
other people. So yeah, every teacher's got those challenging decisions to make.
Yeah. And then that started all kinds of like the Seehings in the club not trusting Alex Coe, who's this
The
young kid who thinks because Tanka
jealousy and
Hung made him chairman.
right.
And he was in his 20s or, early 30s, late 20s,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and it made him chairman of the club and had him
yeah,
sitting right next. So it was Alex and Wakun.
yeah,
And in the pictures, Tan Ka Hung is sitting in his chair and Wakun's on one side kneeling and Alex is on the other side. And the other eight Sihings who were active like during when they wrote the Red Book, The Way of Gocho-kun,
hmm yeah,
right, are standing behind him. But
yeah,
Alex and Wakun were the two
yeah,
disciples, and they're kneeling by his side. And Tanko gave Wakun permission to open up the Tsinghua Gocho's Club,
right,
the first official branch of
right,
Benkiam.
right,
And then when Wakun passed away, his students got absorbed back into Benkiam.
right,
And then,
right.
so
And so it's
yeah,
a tradition in our family of this art that
yeah,
you don't open a school unless you have permission, and typically you receive a name from your teacher to name the school
that's correct.
in that way. So that was Wakun was the first.
Watkin was the first, and I was the second.
Yeah,
A few decades later. So 1989 was Watkin's Tsinghua, and I was
yeah,
in 98. Just flip the
yeah,
number, so 11 years.
wow,
And here on the wall is a red banner,
yeah,
and a close up and the of it is in the book, and the translation of it down
yeah,
the middle it says five ancestor fists, Orthodox or traditional.
yeah,
And then it says from the Benkiam Athletic Association to the Bang
yeah,
Hung, American
yeah.
Bang Hung Athletic Association, because I was an American branch. All
Right,
right.
right.
And then later in 2015, before Sifu Alex passed, and I was taken as a disciple under Benito Tan, Tanka Hung's son, who is the figurehead.
Mhm.
Um, they said, well, Beng Hung should be the international association for all people not training at Ben Kiam,
Right,
because they didn't really have a governing body. It was just the club, you
right.
know. So
Yeah.
Beng Hung we represent anybody internationally who wants to do Ben Kiam style of Gocho Kun, from the
Orthodox.
Fifth Tiger, the Orthodox method,
Yeah,
to come and train and be under our
yeah,
banner,
yeah,
you know, and
yeah.
you can still train with the Sihings from Ben Kiam. The club, the physical building closed,
hmm
because of some different reasons. It's mentioned in the
hmm
book.
hmm
Um, but the Sihings are teaching.
Yeah,
They have private students. One teaches in a public school. One's teaching somewhere else. So they're still teaching. There's just not a big one location school anymore.
yeah,
But the art is
yeah,
still moving. The art is still
yeah,
there and growing.
yeah. And
Yeah,
super healthy
and all,
here in the States. So,
super healthy here in the States. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. I wanted to read before we forget a two Calcut from Chua Gyuk Bang
Awesome.
on the Modek, right?
Awesome.
uh,
Yes,
on
please.
on the thing, and this is on page 22 of the book,
Okay.
and it's all they're all in these nice framed things here,
Yeah.
and it says here, self-cultivation and modesty in posture are fundamental. Learning methods and skills in unity. To learn martial arts, one must learn moral character. To seek moral character, self-cultivation is fundamental. Before practicing martial arts, one should cultivate moral character. Before teaching others, one should educate the heart. Before learning skills, one should learn courtesy. Before practicing boxing, one should cultivate virtue. I mean, that says it all in
Super
a
clear.
nutshell.
Super clear.
Super clear, right?
Yes.
Um, and then here we were talking about the Qing and the Ming. Chua Kyuk Bang had this sign hanging, says, contacting patriots to overthrow the overthrow the Qing dynasty, practicing medicine to benefit society. Bang.
Mm,
You know, it's like we're going to overthrow for our country and we're going to
yeah,
benefit society by healing their wounds.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
Just
mean,
oh, my apologies. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Yeah, I the this book is so incredible to me also because I just have never seen such a comprehensive book about really any style. You know, we're going to be covering a lot of chapters as we get back together and talk in further depth. But like the the historical documentation about the style, the modern analysis and reference to modern physiology and understanding of Chinese medicine, as well as Western medicine and modern training methods, it's just so valuable in bridging the past to modern understanding and helping us not look at the old stuff and go, ah, that's old, antiquated things. It just, we do things differently now. It actually really, to me, helps me understand that, like, there was so much that was well understood hundreds of years ago about fighting. The human body, empty hand fighting is hard, it really has hardly changed at all, right? The question is, how are you training? How hard are you training? What's your training focus? What are your expectations and the rules involved, if there are rules, if you're doing that kind of thing. But to me, it's really an amazingly comprehensive book. So I would suggest for anybody who trains an art other than what we train or something similar like White Crane, even something wildly different, a Northern martial art or a Korean martial art. I think looking at a book like this is very helpful to understand how you might look at any system and catalog it for understanding. What is the ethos and the culture that drove it? How has it changed over time? What are the moral requirements of the art, the moral expectations? What do we expect you to do to train your body to be ready to become a proper avatar of this system? And then, how do you train your mind? How do you train your bravery? How to train your spirit, your energy, and all those things. So again, we'll cover a lot more of that as we move forward. But we've spoken quite a bit about the historical development already. So I think we've covered the majority of the questions I had in that section. I wanted to follow up a little bit more on um, your thoughts on how you receive the transmission from your teacher and your thoughts about preservation of the tradition moving forward. What's been done so far, including your book, and what do you recommend that the rest of us do to be a part of that and help that work correctly? So that's kind of a two-part
Yeah,
question.
sure.
I
So
guess,
the first thing is,
yeah.
no, I got it. Yeah, thank you. The first part is that when I started training with Sifu Alex Ko, I had already had 15 or 16 years of training
Mhm.
in martial arts. I didn't go to him as a beginner,
Right,
and I had Taekwondo and wrestling and boxing and Wing Chun and Arnis, right, Eskrima
right.
under my belt. So when I met him, I went to the Philippines to research in Filipino martial arts and to meet different teachers there, and he happened to be there. I had
Mhm.
no idea he lived there. It was total chance meeting, and there he was.
Right,
And I
right.
knew him from his articles in Inside Kung Fu,
Yeah.
and I was like, what? And then he did, Sung Cha, one thrust for me, and the room vibrated, and I heard this noise come out of his arms, and I was like, that's it,
All
you know,
right.
master. But it took a couple years, because when you teach, especially somebody who already has knowledge
Mm.
on different arts,
Mhm.
it's hard to reframe them.
Mhm.
They're to reframe their mind, their thinking, what they think they know, what they don't know that they don't know. Like
Yes,
you,
yes,
you can know what you don't know, but it's the stuff that you don't know, which is bigger,
yes,
and that's where a lot of problems come in for people, just in life in general. They don't
yes,
have enough exposure to know their limit
yes, yes.
of what is above to keep
That's the
training, keep
right,
studying, right?
right.
Um, but so one day on our visit, he accompanied me to Taiwan. I was going to Taiwan to visit Adam Shu, Sifu Adam Shu, and to see Cao Tao Song, the Northern Seven Star Mantis Master. Um, and Stuart Ho, a Shingi master there. And anyway, he accompanied me, and in the hotel room at night, between our twin beds, he said, hold your Gocho posture, and I'm going to push two fingers on you and don't fall. And I was like, whatever, dude, in my head, whatever, dude, but okay,
Yeah.
Sifu.
Right.
And he just do it, and I'm falling onto the bed, do it, and I'm the harder I would push, the easier, the faster I would fall backward because not knowing like nobody had it's all just like block and hit and block and punch and throw a kick and sweep and hit hard and be fast and it's about techniques and that's it up till that point
Right.
for me in my martial art journey
Yeah.
and it's like okay there's these internal guys whatever I'll just punch them in the face how are you going to be internal you know but he was showing me something and we were both laughing so hard I mean he was laughing because I suck so bad and I was laughing because I suck so bad and it's just fun when you're getting beat up by
Oh,
by somebody like in
I
martial arts.
I do the same when you or somebody does that to me. I feel like my life flashes before my eyes, but I didn't
You're like a
die, and
kid.
so my nervousness just creates this laughter that's just like, oh my God, I've just been absolutely owned. I can't believe I
Right.
didn't die. Yeah.
And
So
this was just poking,
yeah, yeah,
just poking. It wasn't even like the eskrima sticks flying by your
yeah,
face.
yeah, yeah,
And anyway, and I said, "What the heck?" He's like, "Oh, what's the matter? I thought you said you were trained in martial arts. You can't even. How are you going to block a punch? You can't even take my two fingers." And he's laughing, and I'm laughing. And then he taught me different ways about rooting, and
yeah,
about body structure, and about alignment and tensegrity. But he didn't use those words
yeah,
necessarily. That's just
yeah,
my way of speaking.
yeah.
But then he taught me, and I couldn't do it right away, but
Hmm.
he taught me the way to learn it. And he
Hmm.
said, if you can't withstand this, then how is this going to work on somebody that you're going to hit them, right?
Right,
Piak toe, right?
right,
You're going to hit somebody, and as they're coming in or they're strong, and you're going to go back, send yourself backward. It's like hitting a tree, and the tree doesn't move, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's not just about your force and momentum coming forward. It's about the root
right,
and the ground force and all these
yeah,
things.
yeah.
And um, so inside the Kikun, which is the opening commencement fist, the opening set of every form,
Hmm.
and Samchen is inside the Kikun. This is how important the Kikun is. I gave it its own separate chapter of like 12 pages.
Yeah,
It's so important to practice and learn and master as a set on its own. It's not just a series of movements.
right,
Oh, it's just our salute.
right.
Really? It's long and you do it before every form and you do it before every two-man thing and
Mhm.
every little training session like it's that important and actually the entire system is built on that kikun
Mhm.
and I never knew that until he told me
Yeah.
and then these structure tests which are in the book you and I are doing them in the book
Mhm.
come from the kikun
Yeah.
and if you can't do them in kikun you won't have it in Samchen, Tiante Linchen, Lisa Kun, Sangsao Kun, right? Semun Pakak, etc. Your
Yeah.
kung fu is going to be poor. But most of the people in Benkiam didn't learn them because Tang Kong stopped teaching it when his guys started Choi Li Fut, right? Or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so a majority of the practitioners didn't get it. And then they didn't want to hear it from Alex. I said, well, Alex, you never showed them? Oh, they don't care. They don't know. They think they know more than me. So it's fine. Like their ego is too big. And you see a lot of people doing their opening wrong like this, and it's like, well, that's not how it's supposed to be done. There's an
There's a
actual,
test.
there,
So
there,
like
yeah,
with algebra, you learn the
the
formula, but you
proof.
also learn the test. You can invert
Right,
it and know if it's correct or not.
right, right. So you should be able to test against every single system its integrity based on these tests you learn in the first opening sequence,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
he showed me that, and then we carried that through. I think I had seven forms at that time, in Gocho, seven
Mhm.
forms.
Mhm.
So we had to go back to Samchen,
Mhm.
like start with the opening. All right,
Mhm.
now the first section of Samchen, the three forward, three back. Well, there's this, there's that, there's this, there's this, there's this, there's that, right?
Mhm.
And that's
Right.
all following the Kikun
Right.
because all that's in the Kikun,
Right.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, all of
It's
it,
amazing.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
the style is self-referencing, progressive, and comprehensive.
yeah, yeah. In 2015, I did a series of interviews with him before he passed away,
Mhm.
maybe 6 or 7 months before he passed away, um, where he talked about a lot of these things and gave me a lot of the stories about Ben Kiem and the freedom fighters during the Sino-Japanese War, but he spoke a lesson to me on the forums, which
Mhm.
I transcribed and put in the book, for people in
It's
that section. Oh, you have it. Okay.
I have it specifically marked because it's a real gem.
Yeah.
It's a
And
real
we'll talk
gem.
about that more when we get to that chapter
Yeah,
later, because
yeah.
it's later in the book. But what I didn't realize, even up to 2015, when he told me this, which is now 11 years ago, I
Hmm.
mean,
Yeah,
right, like time flies,
yeah.
is how every form is built from the previous by
Hmm.
only changing two or three characteristics,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And that build on sets the tone for everything that's
Hmm.
in that new form, which might
Hmm.
only be three new moves.
Right.
But the fact that it's built on a change from the previous form, that's built on a change from the previous form, that's built on an adjustment of the form before
Yeah,
it. So
yeah,
in that section of the book, I have a comparison of the first three forms that I put in the
yeah,
book, plus the opening,
yeah,
and it says what each sets out to do and how one changes from the next. And we'll get there
yeah,
in that
yeah,
section later. But those
yeah.
keys are so important because if you don't understand that, you're like, why do we learn another form? There's so many forms and it doesn't matter. And I think there's a Calcuttan here that says if your Kikun is incorrect, there's no way your Samchen's any good, man.
Right,
You
right.
know, in my slang,
Exactly.
that's how it is.
Exactly.
But all of that's there. All of the stuff on breathing, the whole chapter on the breath, a chapter on the mind, a chapter on energy. If
Hmm.
if you don't have the keys to it and you don't understand how to do it in the Kikun, like
Yeah,
the Kikun is the testing ground, it's the lab,
yeah,
it's the training lab,
yeah,
right? You should be able to do everything that's in the book, in the style rather, in the Kikun, the opening set. And if you can be successful, then you do it in Samchen. If it's
hmm,
successful, then you do it in Tiante Linchen. If you're successful, you go to Lisa Kuhn, right?
hmm,
And then maybe you can jump ahead seven
hmm,
forms or 10 forms or whatever you want to the form that you're at. But
hmm,
those are the foundations of movement,
hmm.
positioning, turning, lifting,
Hmm.
floating, sinking, swallowing left and right,
Right.
right? So if you can get that new concept of the breath or the root or the what sink chi the dantian and
Yeah,
5 parts power and what does it mean to sink the shoulder blades, all that stuff that's later in the book in the chapter 17, 18, 19, somewhere around there.
right.
If you can't, you have to be able to train that in the lab of Kikun,
Hmm. No,
right?
that
And
makes
that's
perfect sense.
why that indoor discipleship is important. So what I do now with my students to get to the second part of your question, even though it
Hmm.
seems like I
No,
went
no.
out to the grocery store, is that I teach them all of this in the beginning.
Yeah,
So it might take 2 months to get through Kikun and Samchen,
yeah,
where before I would teach Samchen, I would teach Kikun the first day, Samchen the middle part, and then the closing of Samchen on the third lesson, and then let's just practice and I'll make
yeah,
give you pointers along the way.
yeah,
Well, now it's like 3, 4 weeks just on the Kikun because
yeah.
we're using different devices like bands and balls to hold our structure in place while we're moving a different way so
Hmm.
that we can learn this integrity and what they
Hmm.
call tensegrity in the body and holding root and pulling root from the beginning. And in the beginning, you're not doing any of that. You're just trying to hold a ball and move without letting the ball drop
Right,
out of your legs,
right.
right? And etc. But you're learning the method of movement. So as soon
Yeah.
as you get it, the feeling, it's like the training wheels, but it's in
Hmm.
3 dimensions of movement, right?
Yeah,
Uh, and then as soon as you feel it one time without the training wheels, you'll be able to replicate it. Like
yeah,
you'll know what it
right.
feels like to have it right. You just need to feel it once.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
but
yeah.
if you never feel it, you're like, oh, that's just that internal crap, you know. And technically, this is all internal art, but we don't speak of it in those terms. That's why they call it the gentle art, because
Right.
it's actually a soft art, right? It's not, it hits hard, but we're not just pounding muscle, right? We're generating force and having it shake out and through to hit the target and penetrate through, rather than
Right.
just a cannonball hitting a wall. It's
Yeah.
like two cars crashing each other and the passenger flies through. That's the energy leaving
Yeah.
the arms and the hands and going through the windshield into the other windshield,
Yeah.
right? There's
Yeah.
penetrating power,
Yeah. Yeah.
not just the ball hitting and smashing a hole.
No,
Yeah.
that makes great sense.
So I
You know,
teach that in the beginning. It takes a while for the students to get it, but they get so excited doing the training that they're like excited when they can get it. And I don't have a lot of students because I don't want to teach. I don't have the time or patience to teach people who just don't want to slow their brain and learn the art. And if they don't have the book, they're not going to be my student. It's like the first thing is read the book, and then tell me if that's what you want.
hmm
Your whole thing about your goals and expectations, right? And setting them
Yeah.
triggered
Yeah.
that for me because I used to not like teaching because I got
Yeah.
one guy who wants to just blow through forms, another guy all he wants to do is spar, another
hmm
guy all he wants to do is touch hands every time and gong sao or chi sao or push hands or something.
Yeah.
And it's like I just don't want to do all those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to do it this way and we're going to build up to it. And if it
Yeah.
takes 3 years to get to the section that you like,
Yeah.
well, you're going to be badass when you get there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Rather than me doing it now, but you don't have anything else, and then you're going to leave and go somewhere else because
Yeah.
you're going to want more techniques or something.
Yeah.
It's just not, it's
Yeah.
not interesting to me.
So, Sifu, my last question for tonight is I'm going to start with a statement. Having been your student in integrated eskrima, you impressed me with a few things immediately in that your goal is to teach your students to learn faster than you did. You want to
Yeah.
be efficient and effective as a teacher. And those are two different things. It's very important to understand the difference between those two things, as you helped me understand. Um, you also took what for many people would be the most efficient and effective, probably secret movements from certain styles, and you move that stuff to the very front of the curriculum, knowing that it's the best, knowing that the best stuff doesn't always work, and you still have to have the oh shit techniques or the techniques for obstructions or losing the initiative, those bad situations, but you move the best stuff first, the most difficult things first. But when you learn early, it gives you more time to practice them, right? How did you decide as an instructor that you really wanted to take a hard left turn from how you were taught by some teachers to do that, to teach the best things first, to promise to not drag things out, to be efficient and effective as a teacher, as I'm seeing you do by giving away what for many people are secrets, um, in Gocho as well. What really shaped your opinion, your thoughts? Why did you make such a decision to change the way and give away all the best stuff first? What shaped that?
Well, one thing was um, time. You know, I felt a little bit when I was training with Angel Cabalas and Sarada Eskrima, he had some techniques and movements that are unique to his system. But those came later in the curriculum, like in my master's training. And I thought, like, I could have learned them 10 years ago. Like, it's not like I had to develop 7 new skills to get this skill. It's like
Good.
2 new skills to be able to do that skill.
Right.
Right. And then I was thinking about like, because I trained with Illustrissimo and he was just like amazing to
The
me.
wizard. Yes.
The wizard, like Yoda, like
Yoda. Yes.
amazing. Like Cabalas is amazing, Illustrissimo is amazing in a different way. Remy Presas was amazing, but ambidextrous, 100%, both hands. He hit hard, and he fearless,
Yeah.
but not as polished as the other guys, but a fighter. Um, and I felt that the problem was most Filipino martial artists, most people learning Filipino martial arts, not for self-protection, but as a martial art, and mostly in the West because it comes out of barangays and
Mhm.
families, right? Towns and families,
Mhm.
parts of towns and families
Mhm.
for protection.
Yeah.
It was never really taught in mass schools till after World War II when
Right.
Japanese brought in Shotokan and Aikido, and judo, and then they're like, oh, we can wear belts and uniforms and have lots of students and line them up and do things in really basic ways because now we've got 50 students instead of two, you know.
Mhm.
And I thought, but the problem with a lot of our training here is that has come since the 50s till now is loss of the plot of the whole thing, which is self-defense, right? It isn't how many ways can you disarm the knife or the stick? How many drills do you know? How many variations of hubad do you have? How many variations of the box drill do you have? I remember one colleague practitioner came over one time, not here, decades ago, and it said he wanted to work out with me. I'm like, great. He's like, all right, what drill do you know? I was like, what drill do I know? Like, so you just want to do drills because that's what you're learning, Edgar Sulite was a very tough fighter and a good arnisador in the Philippines. And he came here to the US and learned that the way to make money was to create these long drills and have lots of them because it's easy to teach in seminars. People don't really want to learn and do the hard work. And you can promote them to have branch schools and they could just teach these lab on the road drills, these different drills. And he got very famous here and got a following here, but he also got real out of shape and he lost his timing. And there was things because he wasn't in that fighting environment that he grew up in, right? And he wasn't fighting for money like he used to in the Philippines to earn some money for the table, you know. And he would come back and tell me and Tupper Ricketts and Alex Coe and say, this is how I teach now because this is how I learned to teach in California. And
Right, right.
it's not the real stuff, but it's how we make money and promote the system. You
Sure.
package it in as easily things. And I never did the martial art for that reason. I always did martial arts because I was picked on as a kid and I wanted to learn how to
Mhm.
defend myself. And I had tons of fear inside me. I'm short, I'm not 5'10", 6'1". I'm not the fastest guy. I'm always kind of awkward. I'm not super. I was good at wrestling though and boxing, the very basic things. But I wasn't good at like gymnastics or
Sure.
different coordination skills and stuff. So I had to really work hard, and I just wanted to learn the martial arts as a means of self-defense and to fight.
Mhm.
And then I got into the culture and all
Yeah,
this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
But I realized with Filipino martial arts is so many of these drills and ways of training lost the plot, which was one, do your best not to get hit.
Yeah.
So you got to master timing and range, right? Two, get your technique done quickly and don't screw around.
Mhm.
So why are we doing all these drills that don't end in finishing techniques?
Mm.
And why are we doing all these
Sibu,
one steps?
can you just say that one sentence just one more time? Just,
Everybody's doing tons of drills that don't end with a finishing
oh,
technique,
it's amazing. Yeah.
right? So then you never learn how to end the encounter. It's just keep the flow going. What good is the flow if you don't finish it after the first beat? Angel Kabbalah used to say 3 strikes, one man's down. Like no more than three, right? Whether I hit you twice or 3 times, or you hit me twice, but I get you once, it's really the first hit, right? And to do that effectively, you can't only be in fighting in one range, and you can't just say I do close quarter and not know what range you're actually in.
Right.
And Gocho has ranges too, right? And
Yeah.
we have gates, which is the horizontal, and range is the perpendicular, right? And they're specifically measured out in Filipino martial arts. Well, they
Mhm.
used to be.
Right.
Nobody, nobody, uh, nobody cares about it anymore
The plot was lost
because
somewhere.
because everybody's showing off techniques on YouTube and
Mhm.
everybody's doing seminars to teach techniques that people love and they feel blown away. You see all that technique he did, and he got him over here and around the back and threw him
Sure.
and tickled him, and it's like
Sure.
none of that matters because the plot
The
should be
plot.
the plot is you're attacking me with a weapon. That's for real, for real. And if that's for reals, as we say in Philly, if that's for real, I need to take you out quickly. I need Philly elbow, man, and cheesesteaks. I need to take you out quickly, effectively. It's got to be my technique has to be effective and efficient, both. And I have to not get hit while I'm hitting you.
Yep.
So that's mastering of time and range and gait, which is the
It's a
sideways
short
width,
story. We should be able to hold on to that.
and that's it. Learn that first. Then, because you love the art, add on all the drills you want and the techniques you want and
Cool.
everything else
Well,
as a pastime.
I love that because it's so focused as a teacher, as a trainer, as a coach. You have the plot. It's very simple. Defend yourself, control the factors you can control. Range, gate, timing. Don't get hit, take him out. That's the plot.
That's it.
Now, when the plot goes south and it didn't work, you got to know your ways to follow up. When it goes south and he counters you, you got to know how to defend and get back into the flow, right?
Look, let's say, Russ, I attack you and you defend, but I defend your defense,
Right.
right?
Right.
So now you've gone south, like you said, and I'm
Yeah.
hitting you.
Yeah.
Well, I just consider that I get attacked without me knowing you were attacking me.
Hmm.
So I'm back
Hmm.
to I've been hit. What do I do? I have
Right.
to now turn the tables,
Right.
take you out effectively, efficiently, and try
Yeah.
not to get hit again. And that's
Exactly.
it.
Yeah.
And we have a slogan in Integrated Eskrima. Recta is a straight down
Yeah.
strike. It said, I just want to recta your face, you
Right.
know, and
Right.
that's the plot. And
Right.
all of our techniques are named with the footwork first. They
Yeah.
all have a name. And it's not just let's do inside block. Okay, here's 20 versions of inside block because that's useless.
Yeah.
That's just useless vomit into a sink.
Yeah.
It means nothing,
Yeah.
right? Have to know what range you're in. There's 7 pillars you have to know.
Hmm.
It's what range you're in, what gate you're in, what timing are you in,
Hmm.
right? What technique are you using, what strike is happening, right? I
What's the
mean, there's 7
footwork?
of these things that
Yeah.
are important.
Yeah.
And the most important is range and time because you need to control space and timing, right?
Yeah.
Get it done quickly and don't get hit. So all of our techniques, the footwork is first, lutang, recta batapias. Lutang is the step back, changes my range,
Yeah.
not my gate, my range.
Mhm.
Rectus, straight down hit. Mode 1, hit first, don't block. Patapias is my follow-up hit that can be an inside block. It's a metaphor for anything that comes from this way. So it could be a block this way, it could be a florete, it could be
Yeah.
another hit, it could
Yeah.
be a hit and move, it could be whatever. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
But the point is, the first thing is control your range and to hit on the first beat. And all of our techniques in Scream are named and taught that way. And there's 13 footworks, and maybe you only use 3 or 4 for yourself later, but you got to train all 13 to get them in because there's
Hmm.
lateral, there's diagonal, advancing, there's retreating, there's
Right.
double, there's diagonal. And it's not just dancing around on triangles on the floor. That's aerobics. That's got nothing to
Right.
do with anything. And
Right.
it's not
Right.
doing carenza and swinging your stick in the air. That has no purpose.
Right.
It has absolutely no purpose other than
Right.
wearing out your wrist and getting your
Right.
cardiovascular,
But
right?
you
We
wanted to
have
be,
striking combinations like boxing, 1-5, 1-5, 2-3-4, 1-4. We have 5 of those combinations, and we use those at the end of our techniques as follow-ups. That's the
Mhm.
finish.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we have a slogan, Lusut, what's it called?
I forget.
All right. So it's called leak, flow,
Leak,
and,
flow,
and
and
finish.
finish. Yeah. Yeah.
Leak, flow, and finish, right? So I want to leak into the open area to hit you, flow around your stuff, and finish you.
Hmm.
Boom.
Hmm.
And I use that same philosophy, Lusut Suratapos, and I use that same philosophy in Gocho. And for me in Gocho, because it's empty hand, right? We have to develop first is the Gocho body. The
Hmm.
body is not going to allow you to do the techniques properly, the grounding, the rooting, the tightness. You can have a belly, but still be rock hard in that belly underneath, right?
Hmm.
Having some fat on your arms has nothing to do with the strength of your arms,
Hmm.
right? That's a
Hmm.
metabolism issue, that's a stress
Hmm.
cortisol issue, but you still need to build the body of Gocho, which means the shoulder blades can drop. The
Hmm.
shoulders themselves need to vibrate because it
Hmm.
helps move. The body needs to raise and lower, right? The pelvis
Hmm.
tucks, the perineum clinches, the energy comes up and
Right.
comes down the arms, and you get the
Right.
vibration. And it's
Yeah.
not flapping. Hit anything flapping, you'll break your hand.
Right.
It's got to be strong,
Yeah.
no matter what hand technique you have. The body has to shake down to the floor and get the rebound force up
Right.
and et cetera.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in modern language, we call it the kinetic chain.
Yeah.
There it
Yeah. Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah.
When you
Ground
talk
reaction
about
force.
the ground
Yeah.
reaction force, the kinetic chain,
Yeah.
kinetic flow,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
that's that bringing the
Yeah.
modern language into the training
Yeah.
for an
Yeah.
understanding, but having the cultural language of
Yeah.
root to the earth and sing Cheetah Dantian and
Right. Right.
move your jing through the arms. That's the cultural stuff that now we can
Yeah.
say that with scientific biomechanical terminology.
Yeah.
that makes sense to a modern audience,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they're not just like it's woo. Well, it's not
Yeah.
woo. It's just
Yeah.
different words.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's one
yeah,
of the things I really appreciate that you've done, Sifu, is connected because I also found through my teaching that teaching using the cultural and historic terminology first can often slow down the progress for a Western modern student. But for me and for more advanced students, those Calcut, the colorful, poetic language can be great ways to use the key to lock that in your brain so you don't forget, right? Because
right.
it gives you that extra hook. So, Sifu, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for going through the tremendous effort in not only
Oh my God, I
documenting
have that book
researching.
too.
I, it's awesome, right? That's a good
We're
one.
twinning. We're twinning, as my daughter would say.
There you go. Well, I'll take a screenshot of that one. But thanks for your time, Sifu. I look forward to doing this again
Yeah,
soon
thank you.
so we can continue working through the book. I know your students and my students especially will appreciate a chance to hear you talk about these things while they read the book. So thank you again, Sifu. Appreciate you.
You're very
Thank you.
welcome. Thank
Thank
you.
you for your time. Be well, Sifu. Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.